Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Did you happen to go to college?
I did.
What did you major in?
I have 2 undergraduate degrees and a graduate degree. My undergraduate degrees are in mathematics and in evolutionary biology, and my graduate degree is in evolutionary biology.
What are you working at now? What's your job?
This is my job.
Hey, it's Peter Schiff at SchiffRadio.com. I'm here in New Orleans on the famous Bourbon Street, and I want to ask some of the people who are working here tonight exactly where they went to college, or if they went to college, what they majored in, when they graduated. Let's find out just what kind of career a college education buys you in America. Come along. Are you working here tonight?
Yes, I am. I'm originally from California. How you doing?
Good. By any chance, did you go to college out there?
Virginia State University. I'm a Trojan. Went for physical education. And I'm a lingerie football player.
Did you go to college?
Yeah,
When did you graduate?
2006.
What was your major?
History and English.
And now you're driving a bike?
Yep.
What was your major?
It was robotics.
When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2003.
And what are you doing now?
I'm working for a strip club.
Did you happen to go to college?
Yeah.
What did you major in?
Business. Communications.
Radiology.
Graphic design.
Business management.
Psychology.
Science.
Did you go to college?
Yes.
And what did you major in?
Business administration. General studies.
Economics.
What's your major in?
Business.
Criminal justice.
Culinary.
Asian studies.
Did you go to college?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, what did you major in?
Political science.
By any chance, did you go to college?
Yeah, I did. Went to Tulane.
What did you major in?
Business.
Business.
What was your major?
Business and marketing. I majored in mechanical engineering.
I have a degree in linguistics and a degree in psychology.
What did you major in?
Biology.
Advertising and religious studies.
Business and management.
Mechanical engineering. Biological sciences.
You think was it an English degree you said you majored in? Does that help you pedal that bicycle?
It absolutely does not. This is why you should not major in liberal arts.
I'm a bouncer here.
What did you major in?
Alright.
When did you graduate?
A couple years ago.
And what do you do now?
I'm a doorman at a strip club.
How long ago did you graduate?
97.
How long have you been tending bar?
20 years?
Did you happen to go to college?
I did.
I did.
You did also?
Yes, I did.
What did you major in?
Funeral service education.
I didn't even know that was a major.
It is.
You're the tarot reader?
I am one of them, yes.
Did you happen to go to college?
Yes, I did.
What did you major in?
Accounting.
And what did you major in?
Engineering.
Do you find your degree helpful at all?
Not anymore.
Is this just a part-time job, or is driving a bike what you do for a living now?
It's a full-time job. It's what I do for a living.
When did you graduate?
About 20 years ago.
4 years ago. It's been about 12 years.
About a year. 2 years ago.
4 years.
About 6 years actually now.
21 years ago.
How long you been reading tarot cards?
About 32 years altogether.
When did you graduate?
College was 93.
2010.
I graduated in 04.
2006.
2004.
I graduated in 1994.
98.
2010.
I finished in 96. 2010.
I graduated in 06.
87.
Just graduated in 2011 and then went to grad school and finished this last May.
You went to grad school. What did you major in?
Neuroscience. And psychology, yeah.
And what do you do for a living?
At the moment, I drive a bike taxi.
These people want to get in the pedicab.
Yeah, you're going to get driven around by a college graduate. Do you have any student loans?
Yeah, $90,000 worth.
How much do you owe, if you don't mind my asking?
I do mind you asking.
Do you have any student loans?
About 25,000. I've lucked out.
I owe about $7,000.
I'm like 20,000 in the hole.
Do you have any student loans you're still trying to pay off?
Yeah, about $25,000 worth. I just don't pay them.
Like 25,000. Yeah.
That's a lot of pedaling.
I still got loans to pay off, man.
Still got?
I still have loans, yeah.
And what are you doing now?
I'm working security here at Ritz Cabaret.
You know what my uncle always said?
What?
It's like, hey, is there anybody here with a college degree? Get me another beer.
The Peter Schiff Show.
I'm just trying to do a video on why college is a waste of money. So I'm trying to talk to people who are working and who have college degrees.
every year, millions of people borrow tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get degrees from colleges. When policymakers talk about how to improve the economic well-being of Americans, their ideas almost always include providing more education and upping graduation rates, whatever the cost. Brian Kaplan thinks this could all be a massive waste. He's got a PhD in economics. He's a professor at George Mason University. But despite all that, he's not entirely sold on the value of sending everyone to college. He just published a book called The Case Against Education. Professor Brian Kaplan joins us tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
What's so striking is not just your views, which I share, but the fact that as a college professor, you're making this case. I mean, if I'm an AC repairman and I argue against air conditioning, I mean, I'm arguing against my own interest. Why are you arguing that college is not for everyone?
Well, I think of myself as a whistleblower. I mean, if I were just some guy writing in a basement, who would take it seriously?
True.
I think you really have to be a professor. You have to be someone who's done a lot of research to say this with any credibility, and that's really what.
But we know that people who go to college, have bachelor's degrees, make more than those who don't. Isn't that kind of the end of the argument?
Not at all. So, I mean, there's years you could talk about it, but the main thing that I push is realizing that just because an individual is making more money does not mean that it's a good investment for society. You know, the heart of my story is something called the signaling model of education, but in common sense terms, it just says a lot of the reason why education pays isn't that you're learning useful job skills. You're showing off, you're jumping through hoops, you're impressing employers, but of course, if everybody jumps through the hoops that can impress employers, you've got to jump through more hoops than everybody else, or else the whole process is a waste of time.
Exactly. The costs are really high. I mean, the cost not just to the individual, but to society, now to a whole generation of young people. How do those match up against the benefits?
Yeah, well, so again, you know, for the individual, what I say is that if you are a strong student, then college is a good deal for you, especially if you do one of the high-earning majors. On the other hand, if you are a weaker student, someone who struggles to get through high school, then college is probably just going to be a waste of money, even for you personally. But again, I always try to turn it around to not just thinking about what's good for the individual, but thinking about it from the point of view of society. Should we really be encouraging more people to go? If people are actually acquiring a lot of useful skills in school, well, then it is an investment in our human capital. On the other hand, if the main thing you're doing is jumping through hoops and showing off, it's really a socially wasteful process to a large degree. And that's really what I say, is it is extremely wasteful for society.
But a lot of people are picking up addictions and mental illness in college.
Neither have I. You're fucking a white male.
Not about creating an intellectual state. It is not.
So what percentage would you, and this is speculative, but of any society, or ours specifically, ought to be going to college?
Say about 5%.
5%. So that would make you an elitist and a bad person because you're writing off the other 95%, correct?
Well, you might say that it's elitist to think that only a good person would, you have to be a good person, or you might think that you'd have to be an elitist to think that you aren't a good person if you don't go to college.
Good point.
Yeah, so college is the kind of thing a lot of people just go through and punch the clock and sit through classes and get a degree in something or other. Don't see that it really improves them as a human being. It's a big burden on society, and also it's just a burden on the individual to feel like if I don't accomplish this, then my whole life is a waste of time. Really, I say, there's many different paths to success. I'm a big fan of vocational education, the kind that you see in countries like Germany and Switzerland. And again, just very notable how little of an underclass they have there. You're the kind of person who in the U.S. would say, I hate school, I'm sick of being here, maybe I'll go and drop out and be a criminal. In Switzerland or Germany, you're getting trained to be an auto mechanic or to be a plumber. So that you learn independence, learn skills. You get a peer group of skilled craftsmen instead of a peer group of criminals and dropouts. It seems like
that seems like an obvious point. We have models in other countries where this works quite well. Do you think the effect of tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying by higher education lobbies has obscured that truth?
Maybe. I mean, I think ultimately the problem is the American people. People, as you said, people love the idea of education. If you go and look at survey evidence, the share of Americans who favor cutting education is just almost minuscule, and that's really the main thing that I'm pushing, is spending less on education, saving money on something that really doesn't deliver the goods, especially from a social point of view, and thinking about better ways of spending it.
Do you have tenure?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what I bet your bosses aren't impressed by this argument. Professor Kaplan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
A recent report by the New York Times highlights a pretty shocking new practice used by state governments to force students to repay student loans, make it impossible for them to work otherwise. In 19 U.S. states, authorities have the power to suspend professional licenses, like nursing licenses, if a borrower goes into default on a student loan. In the state of South Dakota, borrowers can lose their driver's license, making it basically impossible to get to work in the first place. Brian Brenberg is an associate professor of business and economics at the King's College in New York, and he joins us tonight. Brian, thanks for coming on.
Good to be here.
I'm a little shocked by this. I mean, is there any other, just to set the baseline, is there any other kind of loan, if I'm late on my mortgage or my credit card, can they make it illegal for me to do my job or take my driver's license away?
No, and I think because people would find this completely shocking. I mean, the idea that the way you're going to deal with people who can't pay their bills is to take away their job, it sounds nonsensical on its face, and it absolutely is. It's a classic case of the government creating a problem and then piling more policy on top that only makes the problem worse.
And student loans, I know you're a college professor, I don't want to beat up on, but colleges are the richest institutions in American life. Drive through any state, and these little pockets of affluence are colleges. And yet those colleges are bankrupting an entire generation of young people who can't buy cars or get married or buy homes because of their student loans. And now they can't work or drive. Like, who is in charge of this?
Well, we have been shoveling billions of dollars at colleges and universities to push students into educational programs that don't give them any place in the marketplace. They can't get a job, and so they go out into the marketplace. They can't find a job. They maybe finally find something that allows them to pay their bills, but because they're behind on their student loans, the state says, you can't do this job anymore. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. The one thing we want young people to do in this country is to get a job, to work, get out in the marketplace. Anything that keeps them out of that is going to be counterproductive.
So, but I mean, a lot of these lenders, too, are obviously getting rich. I've met some of them, really rich. But how did they get it into the law that if their loans don't get repaid, as distinct from all the other loans people have, there's a legal punishment?
Because the state guarantees, the state will either guarantee or subsidize these loans, so the state has an interest in it. And when they don't get paid back, they look for a way to deal with that. And you can do that by putting a lien on people's property. You can do that by garnishing wages. But they came up with this idea that they're going to keep people from working. And again, the reason that exists is because in this country, so many people have to get a license to do their job. So you've got government pushing people into educations that don't help them. And then they've got, on the other end, government approving the work they can do and taking away that approval when the person's in dire straits financially.
And it's destroying a generation. When you look at the polling of young people and they support socialism over capitalism, and you're wondering, why are young people so mad and so crazy? Student loans are driving a lot of that.
Absolutely. It's absolutely the case. But look, there's a lot of young people who are saying, well, we should get the government more involved in student loans. We should get the government more involved in the economy. This is what happens when you do that. The right and the left hand of government don't pay attention to each other. You end up pushing people in education that they can't use. Then you say they can't do the job that they've actually found. If you want more government in those spheres, this is what you're going to get.
How long till debtors' prisons come back?
Well, I think we're talking about debtor prison right now, Tucker. It's just a different name.
It sounds that way. Brian, this is even worse than I thought. Thank you.